Welcome to the first of 4 segments about using Google Earth for farm planning. My name is Steve Gabriel, and I'm going to walk you through in this session the basics of downloading, opening, and navigating through the program. So if you go to www.googleearth.com/earth, you're going to find the website to download this program. This is a free program from Google Earth. It used to be that you had to pay for the advanced features, but now it's open to everyone. It's pretty amazing that we can access all this information right from our computer desktop. And there's actually multiple choices. If you go to that website and click on Earth versions, you're going to see an option for using it on the web through Chrome, on a mobile device, or on desktop. But we're going to focus on the desktop version. Keep that in mind if you use other versions, that all these features that we go over may not be available on the other versions. So I've gone ahead and downloaded and opened up the desktop version. One of the big advantages of the version on your computer is that you can save places, and it'll save the imagery associated with those places. So you don't have to be connected to the internet to access maps of your farm or the land that you're managing once you've saved them in the program. So that's a nice feature of the desktop version. So once we open up the program, we want to first look at the sidebar here, and you can toggle this sidebar on and off with the button at the top here if you want to look just at the imagery of Google Earth, but we're going to keep it on for now, and we'll zoom out a bit. So this is what Google Earth offers us is satellite imagery for the entire Earth. It's pretty amazing. This is a free thing that we can access, and it's basically a geo-locating program. And what that means is that every point on this Earth has associated with it a latitude and longitude. So you can see as I move my cursor over the United States here, you can look in the bottom right part of the screen, and you can see that the latitude and longitude is changing. And as we zoom in, that'll be the same case. And so this also gives us, as we get closer in, altitude, elevation data. And so that's basically what this is where you have digital imagery associated with a geographic location on Earth. So we call that geolocation. So this is considered a GIS, or Geographical Information System. It's more simple and user-friendly than some of the more complex ones that can be done out there. And as a result, there's some limitation to what you can do, but there's quite a bit you can do as a farmer to use this tool for planning. So on this sidebar, we have 3 different areas, and you can always open and close these if you like with the carets by each name. So we have a search toolbar, we have places, and we have layers. The layers are pre-loaded via Google Earth, and I don't use these a whole ton when I'm making most of my maps, but those are certainly things you can play with. The search bar just allows you to get to any place on Earth by putting in the location. You can also get directions just like you would with maps online. And then My Places is where we're storing information that we create and also that we bring into the system. So let's first find our farm here. We're going to put in our address. And if we click on search, then it's going to take us down to our farm in central New York. If I want to save this point, I can simply go down to the bottom of the screen and click on this folder arrow, and that'll add it to My Places. So now if I open up My Places, I see that down here we have a folder with that address. If I open up the caret next to that folder, we have the pin associated with that. In addition, if you want to delete or clear the search bar, you can just press this X here. And you notice that because I saved that place, it's still here in the folder, and I can toggle that on and off. So that's the first thing to do is find the locations that you want to include and save them into My Places. My Places is where all of your data is stored, and what I really recommend is that you start a good process of organizing different folders so that it's easy to turn layers on and off. If you have one long string of points and lines and polygons and it's all a big mess in here, it's really hard to navigate. So start off by making some folders and making sure you have the right points. Whenever you're adding something, as long as you've highlighted the folder that you want to store it in, it's going to save that for you. And at any time you can, of course, right click or and delete and remove that's from a previous class. Here's something I don't need anymore. I can delete and remove these materials. And this looks like an empty folder, so I can clean up and keep this clean. Now, what I really recommend throughout the process also is that you save My Places. If you go up to File and Save My Places, that's going to give you the opportunity to for the program to remember all the things that I've created in this space. When we bring things in, which we'll talk about in a future video, it's often that they open up in temporary places. So when I first brought in this soil web data, which we'll get into at a future video, it originally showed up in temporary places, and what that means is that this folder, when I close Google Earth, is going to clear all of those things. If I want to have something like the soil web information as a permanent feature, what I need to do is drag it up into My Places, and then again go up to File, Save, and Save My Places. In addition, you can also export any of this information and save it on your desktop, which is always a good idea periodically. So if I clicked on Wellspring, our farm folder here, I could save that folder. I could also just save all of my places as a file. So if I click on the folder or on My Places and I want to save a backup, I would just go to File, Save, and then Save Place As. And the dialog box will show, let's say I just want to save this to my desktop. I can save it either as a KMZ or a KML, and that stands for Keyhole Markup Language, KML. KMZ is Keyhole Markup Zipped file, so it zips the file into a smaller package. I generally recommend that you save it as a KML, and you will find as we open up files, we'll often open up KML files as well. So that will save a version of this to your desktop, or if you want to export it to somewhere else. Okay, other basic functions that we want to cover in here, in addition to these panels, in addition to saving your data and making sure you keep on that, is to just understand the basic navigation of Google Earth here and what you can do with it. So of course we have layers of aerial photography. As we zoom into our farm here, we'll notice that it says an imagery date. So the last imagery that's available here is from September 24th of 2016. And indeed it does show some of the features from that season where we were still constructing our house, things like that. Usually the data is updated every couple years or so, so we haven't gotten an updated map yet. Hopefully we'll see that in the future. You can look at historical data if you go up to the top here and click on this clock with a little green arrow around it. It'll open up a toolbar and it'll show you your current aerial photography, and then you can toggle back where these lines are and see previous information. So here's May of 2013. You can see here we don't have our house built, of course, and this farmland was still being rented to a neighbor for vegetable production. We can go further back in time to 2009 and we see very little activity, lots of open land there. We can go back even further. So sometimes you learn things about your landscape by perusing back through the imagery over time. If we go all the way back to 1995, you can actually notice a difference here in where the original road or farm lane used to cut across this field. And between 95 and 2003, there was a road put in here. That's now our main driveway, right? So sometimes you can learn interesting information just by perusing through that data. And when you want to turn that off, you just go up to the corner here and press the X. It'll take you back to the normal thing. So there's a couple features in terms of how you can navigate around the imagery. We have these bars up here. So here's the compass rose, and we can simply pull on things. We can drag this around and orient our map to different. We can put north at different parts. So if I wanted south to be at the top, I can just move it around. If I double click on the north arrow, it'll take it back to north, which is nice to know. There's this option with the eyeball here to kind of look around. You can pan left and pan right and pan up and pan down. And then with the hand, you can basically drag the map side to side or up to down. All right, and then of course there's this toolbar here where you can zoom in and out. So with these, things, you can kind of get all sorts of different perspectives. Let's say I wanted to zoom in on our house. So maybe I'm gonna center that in the map. I'm going to zoom in on it, and then I kind of want to change the perspective, and so I'm going to move myself around here, right, and I can sort of pan up and down and maybe I want to zoom in a little bit more, and that sort of thing. Okay, so it takes some time to get used to the functions and how you can navigate comfortably. I actually don't use these side things very often. What I like to do is just if I notice there's a hand on the map, I can actually just grab the map with my mouse and drag it in any direction. I can use the scroll on my mouse, the little scroll wheel, to zoom in and out. And if I hold shift and hold onto the map, I can actually turn and pan around. So I find these sort of keyboard features to be a much simpler way to navigate around the map. But do take some time to get familiar with that, and you'll get really comfortable with being able to go where you want to go and look from the direction that you want to look from. There's a nice feature on here called the terrain exaggeration feature. So if we look at our farm here, it's basically flat right now, but there's quite a bit of terrain. And if I want to see that, I would just go down to the layers map and I would click on terrain. And now it shows a bit of difference as I zoom in. If I look kind of from the side, it shows some of that topography. But it doesn't show that dramatic of a change. And so what's nice sometimes is to be able to see what some of the differences are as you're thinking about your property and your landscape. So if you go up to File, under Google Earth Pro, under that menu, there's Preferences. This might be a bit different if you're using a PC. I'm using a Mac. But in your preferences, you can find elevation exaggeration. Right now it's not on anything, but I can go as high as 3 times the exaggerated rate. And what we'll find is the map will redraw and actually give us quite an extreme interpretation of the elevation data, and so it gives us a real good sense of some of the features on our landscape here. And so that can be fun to kind of look around. It gives you some perspective and some sense of the landscape, what you might be working with. Again, this is 3 times the normal amount, so it's not an accurate representation, but it does give you some sense of what the slope might look like. For instance, on this part of the farm, much more extreme than on this part of the farm, which is much more general. Okay, and anytime I want to turn that feature off, I can just go and click off the terrain feature. And sometimes when you do those things, it kind of shoots you out to a weird place, and that's why it's nice to always have this home button or this home pin, because it'll help you find, and if you double click on that, it'll bring you back to home and you're ready to get started and go again. So those are the basic features and basic navigation. In our next video, we're going to talk about things you can add to the map from some of the drawing tools.